This is Brandon with Fleet Feet, and today I've got a very exciting shoe for you all, and that is the ASICS Superblast 2. Now, I was the only person on our team to actually review this shoe so far, so you're going to be hearing my thoughts, but usually in our review videos, we share all of the thoughts from our reviewers who are reviewing each of these shoes. This is the long-awaited second model of the Super Trainer category for ASICS. The first model of the Super Trainer was probably my favorite shoe ever. I mean, it's got to be up there at the very least. But as you can tell, I actually ran a ton of miles in the first model of this shoe. And this actually isn't even the first pair that I got. I actually got like multiple pairs of this shoe. This is actually the third pair of the Superblast that I have here, and even these I've chewed up pretty badly. I really do love this shoe. A lot of people in the running shoe world and on Reddit basically consider this one of the best shoes ever. And for 2023, it really did stand up to basically all the rest. But for those who don't know anything about the Superblast, this is their second model. It is best for daily training miles and for long run day, and it could be a pretty good race day alternative. It's one of those shoes that you can kind of do it all in. But before we go any further, please make sure to like and subscribe to this channel and stay tuned for when all of our new videos come out. It really helps us a bunch. So now let's move on to the upper. The upper, much like the last version, is made up of a woven mesh upper. It has a thin and gusseted tongue, and it has pretty thin padding around the heel collar, similar to the last version. And one of the areas that has improved is that it has a more breathable toe box than the previous version, and it definitely has a spacious toe box. One thing that I will note about this shoe is that I did receive my normal size 8.5. In the last model of this shoe, which I believe is on the same last, I ran in an 8.5 and I ran in the 8, and I actually preferred going a half size down. Now, the rest of our review team in the first model also agreed and said that they preferred running a half size down in this shoe too. I do have a size 8.5 here, and it was just a little bit bigger than I'm used to. This is a shoe that I definitely would recommend going a half size down in, just because the last is a little bit long. But if you're curious about whether this shoe is going to fit for you or what your foot shape is, you can go get your foot scanned through the Fit ID process or outfitting experience at a local Fleet Feet store. Now, moving down to the midsole. The midsole of the shoe has a pretty similar anatomy to the first model, where it has their race day midsole on the top, and then it has more of that daily trainer feel on the bottom for a more cushioned landing. But we do have some new updates. This shoe has upgraded both of its foams from Flight Foam Turbo to Flight Foam Turbo Plus, which is a more cushioned and more responsive ride than that of the last foam, and you can actually find that in the Sky Paris. And you now have Flight Foam Blast Plus Eco, which is the same foam that you can find in the Nova Blast 4. So it's like ASICS is blending their race day shoe and the Nova Blast together to get this really wild ride here. And I gotta say, it's one of my favorite shoes this year. I've loved getting miles in it. It definitely is going to be one of those shoes that's gonna be hard to beat in 2024. This shoe also doesn't have a plate, but it still has a ton of rigidity, and it's still a pretty stiff shoe overall. And you can tell that it's still well stabilized and balanced. And the drop of this shoe comes in around 8 millimeters, with 45 millimeters in the heel and 37 in the toe. 0.5 millimeters less than the previous model, though I don't think that there's really any difference. It's pretty much negligible. I would say that the stack height pretty much feels exactly the same. With 45 and 37 in this shoe, you are definitely feeling pretty high off the ground. So if you're someone who likes a lot of protection and shock absorption in a shoe, and you just want a higher stack, then the ASICS Superblast makes a lot of sense. And with all of this stack and all of this cushion, it's definitely a shoe that's made to go the distance. From the midsole, there's just a really nice blend between a more responsive feel from the Turbo and a more soft feel from the Flight Foam Blast Eco Plus. Let's move on to the outsole, and I think this is one of the biggest areas of update about the shoe that ASICS has improved on. Both the Superblast and the Nova Blast have outsoles that have not always been the best for traction or durability, so ASICS have basically stepped up to the plate and answered to those calls. And the biggest update to this shoe is that this outsole is now made up of ASICS grip, which is a more durable outsole rubber than the previous model. It is also much tackier, it has much more traction underfoot, and it's going to be more durable. The first model of this shoe did have some traction issues along with the Nova Blast, but I think that ASICS has solved a lot of that in this model. So if you're someone who was worried about the traction or durability in the shoe, don't worry anymore. You've got more aggressive lugs than the previous model for sure. And you can just tell that the wear and tear on this one just really wasn't the same as it is going to be for this one. And one or two minor things, but they have actually filled in some of the gaps where rocks were getting stuck in the shoe, and it still has a very wide base for a very stable landing. And the wide base and enhanced stability of the shoe is one of the things that one of our reviewers, Max, really loved about the first model, and I gotta say that the second model definitely has it as well. From a ride and performance perspective, it definitely feels more cushioned than the last version, a little bit softer as well. The last model definitely focused a little bit more on responsiveness, where I think this one is definitely focused more on cushion and a little bit of a softer feel on foot. But that's not to say that it still doesn't have a stiff and rigid ride. I mean, there's still Flight Foam Turbo Plus in this shoe, so it definitely is a very fast one. You still get that fun, energetic ride. You still get that peppy feeling. It's still a very entertaining shoe to put on. It still has that magic and that it factor about it. And I think with the softer foam and a high stack shoe, it's just gonna save your legs for a longer period of time. When you go into those later marathon miles or half marathon miles, you definitely want a shoe that still retains a lot of its magic. The foam doesn't die out, and that's what you get with a shoe like the Superblast, especially in the second model. What's crazy about this shoe is not only have they increased the cushioning, but they've actually decreased the weight of this shoe. So the weight of this shoe comes in around 249 grams or 8.7 ounces. That is an extremely light shoe and even lighter than the previous model. Even when you thought that you couldn't get any lighter than the first model, ASICS have gone ahead and made an even lighter shoe. Weight is an area that ASICS have definitely focused on, and you can actually tell just from Nova Blast 3, we just thought, wow, that's a really light shoe. And then the Superblast came out and then undercut that by a whole ounce. And now you've got the Superblast 2 that is even lighter than the first Superblast, so you've got an extremely light shoe here. This shoe comes in at $200, which is around the same price as a lot of other super trainers, with the On Cloud Monster Hyper coming in at $200, the Neo Vista coming in at $180, and the SC Trainer coming at $180. So this shoe kind of falls into that similar category. If you're interested in this shoe or you want to pick up a pair, you can go into your local Fleet Feet store, or you can check it out online at fleetfeet.com. What video do you want us to review next or compare to this one? Please leave it in the comments below. If you want to learn more about this shoe, you can check it out on the blog at fleetfeet.com, where you can hear from all of our reviewers and their thoughts and opinions. And as always, make sure to follow us on all of our social channels wherever we might be.